was it in the ocean that got really dangerous to be? It was the undercurrent, but it was also the jellyfish. The oh shoot, what's the name? I'm blanking. Yeah, it was. Yeah, they were very toxic, and I'll come up with it. I'm just having a 60s moment, I guess. Yeah. But they would shut down the beaches for an hour or so until things changed, and so the whole beach would just disappear. The storm would come in, and then the light would come out, the sun would come out, and then all the families would come out. It would just get crazy busy. South Padre Island is also very popular for college kids during spring break.
Oh, okay.
So it's a very popular beach. Anyway, on this particular day, I just remember the storm coming in, they shut down the beach, everybody disappeared. I'm sitting there on the beach, I'm drinking my wine, and I'm crying, and I'm just about as lost as I've been. And I just decided, screw it. Can't do this anymore. So I had my bottle, and I took a few pills. I mean, honestly, I don't talk about this very much, but I think now I'm sort of okay with it, because at first it was a little bit of something that I carried around with a shameful moment. But I know a lot of people have had this experience, and so I sort of just want to give life to the truth of that moment, but the gratefulness that God had a different plan and a better plan for me. Because some people lose that moment. My son did. Yeah. And I'm glad that I'm not that same story, but I just walked in and I said, screw it, and I walked in, and I had no business being in that water, the rip tides and all these other things that were going on, and I just said, have your way with me. I mean, I literally lifted up my arms physically and I said, have your way with me, I surrender. And I did. I surrendered. But I couldn't even screw that. I mean, I screwed that one up too, because those waves kept, that ocean wanted nothing to do with me staying there for very long. Those waves just kept throwing me back in, and every time I'd go out, then those very violent waves would just sort of slam me down, and it was getting uncomfortable, and I think I was like, wait a minute, this sort of hurts, and I don't really like this, and there's nothing about this this is not cool, God, like this isn't,
making this hard too.
Like, yeah, all I wanted was out, so now you're even going to make that hard for me. And at some point, I'm thrown up on the beach, and now I just look like the most pathetic shit show you've ever seen. I got sand, I got dirt, I got this empty bottle. I mean, I am a loser. And now the sun comes out, and like I said, when the sun comes out, man, people hit that beach like someone opened the gate, and now I hear, and my face is on the ground. I remember that sun hitting my face, and I hear these little babies, and they're crying, and these little moms calling their kids, and it's all in Spanish. I don't understand the language, except that I know the language of a mother trying to get their kids. And I look up and I see these little babies, and they're all wanting to play, and moms are throwing out the towels and stuff for them. Hey, I'm sorry, I didn't know this. Thanks a lot.
Okay.
Thanks a lot, ladies.
Not trying to be Oprah.
Oh my God. But I think what it was for me is that I saw these moms, and they were protecting their babies, and they were trying to get their little game plan for the beach, and everybody's coming on, and I'm looking at, now what I'm thinking is, okay, Leslie, these little babies you are gonna scare the heck out of them. You look like this crazy woman with an empty wine bottle with sand all over you. Get your butt off that beach and go get away from this scene, because you don't want those kids to see you. So now I felt like, gosh, just get out of there. So I did. I just crawled back up to a piece of driftwood or something, and then just sat on the beach and just watched all these families come together, and all these little Kyles. And I saw my life when we lived in Newport Beach and Fountain Valley and Huntington Beach, and I saw my little Kyle. And then I saw those little boys that were going to be soldiers maybe one day. And that's when it started to hit me that you got to help those little babies who become soldiers and protect this country. And you couldn't do it for Kyle, but you got to do it for them. And I didn't know what that looked like, but that was really my first aha God moment where, I mean, there were a lot of God moments, but that was the moment, the defining moment for me that, Leslie, it's time. Get back to Gig Harbor, find your way, and find a way to honor Kyle and help other soldiers. So the road trip back was pretty incredible. I had $900 to my name. And I had tires that were filled, and I had love and an oil change and well-wishers for this little community that I'd made down there. And love, love, love. And my
here
aunt...
you are again,
Yeah,
going
here-
back, the same, like
Yeah,
with another
it was
group.
Memorial Weekend. And Memorial Weekend, the other part of that story that propelled me to go back Memorial Weekend is that I had left some things in storage up here. And I got a certified letter in the next weeks that said, we are going to implode this building and all of your things in this storage are going to be either destroyed or you need to get them out of there.
It's a sign.
It was a sign. And I said, you got to be kidding me. And I didn't want to ask any of my friends or family or my son-in-law to do that job for me. I'd already asked so much of them. You know, I felt like they were just carrying me for so long. So I said, okay, I got to go. And so... But the beautiful thing is on my way back, I started seeing a little bit of color. Those cactus flowers had color. Those mountains in New Mexico and Arizona and all that, started seeing a little bit of sunset. Not a lot, but just enough to remind me that I was on the way. And so this is the cool part. I go visit my sister very briefly. Then I go to every beach that there was an opportunity for me to park and sit, and every beach. And then I get up to this little town called Weed again, to that same little motel. Now this is 6 months later, and I thought, just on a whim, I'm going to go into the office manager, and I'm just going to see if by some chance back in January they found that guitar in room number 9 that was my son Kyle's football number, so that's why Kyle's mile is mile 9. I'm just gonna go see, because I'm sure someone has taken it or is gonna use it, but you know what? I walk in there.
This is a little motel.
And it's a little motel. This is the little Weed motel.
I think that's all there is.
And I go in there, and it's almost like they recognize me, because I said, you may not remember me. This is my name, and I stayed here with my son back in January. I said, and he left his guitar. Miss Mayne, we've been holding that for you.
No.
I said, you're kidding me. And of course now the tears are just, you what? You've been holding that for me? Yes, we just felt like we couldn't give it away. We couldn't sell it. And we tried to get a hold of you. And we couldn't. And so it's here. And they went in the back room. And they gave me the frickin' guitar. And again, now for me that was a sign.
Yeah.
And you can make what you want out of it. But at the very least, it was one of the most loving outpouring of affirmations that, and it was just something else. So then I got back home and, I didn't really have anywhere to stay. I couldn't stay with my children. I mean, they let me stay there a little bit. My sister, my brother. I mean, I had some pride at that point. I mean, I started getting pride back. And, everybody took me in a little bit here and there. My friend Sue Brayton let me stay at the Wesley Inn anytime I wanted to, anytime I wanted to shower. I did sort of live out of my truck a little bit. I know my kids just absolutely recoil when they hear me say that, but I'm not ashamed of it. I did what I had to do, But at some point I found a little place to live in, and my friend Kathy at the Tides, who was the general manager at the Tides, said, Leslie, just come back, be a busser for right now. When we get a server position, we'll find it, but just do this. You're good at it. We need you here. I need you here. You need us. Just be. And I told Peter Stanley last week when I was speaking at the Rotary Club, I always try to embarrass him when I see him there. His son Dylan owns the Tides Tavern now, but Peter owned it at the time. and I sort of give him a bad time. But I also praise him, because they really allowed me to grieve at the Tides. It was a very painful time, only because I'd just gone through this divorce, and it was sort of a public divorce, and the person I was married to had sort of a status in the community for a while, as a coach, and so people knew me, and so a lot of the families that knew about this and what had happened, and then my son, and so people would come in to sort of either dig up the dirt, find out how I was doing. Like it was like in my face every day. So it forced me to reckon with what I'd run away from. And so it forced me to either be Jerry Springer or Katharine Hepburn. And I had a little bit of both, I had a little bit of both moments. But the Tides allowed me that, not how many jobs will allow you. And if I had a moment where somebody came in and reminded me of something that triggered my heart, and I'd have to walk out on that deck and just sob, they let me. And then I'd go back in and did my thing. Now eventually, it wasn't that I was a bad employee, but I was limited in my emotion. My emotions were raw. So once I moved into the server role, where I made a very good salary, and I was in my 50s kicking ass at Tides. And if you've been in the service
all
industry,
of you young people,
I mean,
go out and hustle.
try it, man.
Yes.
It's brutal. And if you've been at the Tides, especially in the summer, man, it's. But all these people, all these wonderful family that I still call my family, just loved on me and allowed me that privilege of working alongside of them. And then Peter let me shake down everybody. So it was not like, so when it came into my heart that we needed to do something for our servers, or our servicemen and women. So Kathy says, Leslie.
You were in the right place.
I was in the right place. So Kathy says, Leslie, you love our soldiers. What should we do for them? I said, well, in the perfect world, anytime a serviceman or woman comes in here, we should buy a beer for them, buy a cup of chowder, and fish and chips. They should never have to pay for a meal. She goes, well, I'm not sure we can do that. But what could we do instead? I said, well, then let's buy a soldier lunch. I'll find the soldiers. You put the lunch out. We'll have a party. We'll bring red, white, and blue in. We'll have cakes. We'll let them know they're valued, they're loved, and they'll never be forgotten. She goes, you're on. So I had 3 weeks to plan it, and I got a couple other servers alongside of me because both their husbands were in the service military, and they're both friends of mine still. And in 3 weeks, we raised thousands of dollars, because what we did is we put a fishbowl at the end of the bar, and when customers would come in, we'd say, on October 15th, 2010, we're going to buy a soldier a lunch. And we want you here, but what we want is we want your money too, because we want to be able to do this for them in a very generous way, and we're going to show them what Gig Harbor's made of, and that we do care about our military. So October 15th, 2010, that place was jamming. It was standing room only. I brought 80 Green Beret in, who were just about to leave for Afghanistan, and it was the most absolutely beautiful display of affection, a demonstration of respect and love that I don't think, well, they told me, some of their colonels said, we've lived in a lot of towns. I've been in the Army for 20 years. I've never seen anything like this before. And again, what it did for me, as I'm walking out, the day is over and everyone's had this amazing time. I walk out of there, and somebody walked up to me and said, well, Leslie, that was amazing. What are you going to do next? And I said, sort of like when you walk off the field Super Bowl and they say, hey, that was awesome. We're going to Disney World. I said, you know what? If we can do that in 3 weeks, what could we do in a year if we really gave it really thought and purpose and intention? I said, I'm going to do a race. A race for a soldier. And I'm going to make it big. Maybe it'll be a half marathon, I don't know. But we're going to do a race, and we're going to raise awareness, and we're going to bring attention, and we're going to help our soldiers. And that's all I know. So then when I told my friend Sue that, and I told my grief and loss counselor that, they said, well, you got to go see Miguel Galeana at Route 16. You got to meet Miguel.
Yeah.
So then I met Miguel. And I started knocking on doors, and I started introducing myself. And nobody would say no. And that was the formation of the first Race for a Soldier slated then for 2011. And I got this committee of 30, 35. There were friends and family and new people and old people. And then I would start talking to people at the tides. I got support, I got board members, I got sponsors, I got interested runners, I got volunteers, I got military. If you look like you gave one iota about how we should respond to this epidemic of despair and of hopelessness, then you're my person. And I was able to give them really great food service, but at the same time, the messaging, that's how it started.
Yeah.
You know?
Huh. So you do the race.
Yeah.
And then what happens then in the last couple years? Like, how has it continued to grow? What's the goal?
Sure. But I just want to say the one event that wasn't in my heart until I went back to New York. So I have this idea for a race. I get this committee. Sue Brayton at the Wesleyan lets us have a room all the time, anytime, for a conference room. We never have to pay for it. She's just been such a stalwart supporter of me personally in my journey with the amazing God that has heard every tear, but also just my walk in life. She makes me a better person, and she's just been, I can't say enough of, but there's Sue Brayton, and there's this extension of family that have just been great. So my son-in-law invites me back to New York, to the Waldorf Astoria, to be present at the National Bible Awards dinner.
Okay.
And because he knew that this idea was in my head. So this is November of 2010. So I go back there, I sit with my daughter and my son-in-law, and with all these mucky mucks in this incredible place called the Waldorf. And I have no idea who the guest speaker is, but my son-in-law does. He knows he's a Navy SEAL. So I'm sitting there and I'm looking around. I'm really impressed with how beautiful this is, and I'm excited about this. And I said, God, I'm sitting here, and what is all this about? Then they introduced the speaker. His name is Jason Redmond, Navy SEAL. He had been shot in the face, so the whole side of his face was totally gone. And he had other injuries. He was a friend of Chris Kyle. He was a badass. And he got up there and he told a story of how God met him on the battlefield. And this is 35 surgeries away from what he's about to be. So this is a fairly new injury, catastrophic injury for him. This is 2010. I think his injury was in 08. So it was in that moment when I got to hear Jason. He had such a profound effect on me. He talked about overcoming. He talked about fighting depression and fighting all the reasons why he should fail, and how everybody had given up on him, that his life was over, and of course his Navy SEAL life was over, and then how he was going to respond to his family and friends and what that looked like, and how God walked him through that darkness. And I said, that's it. The race is not enough. I got to have a prayer breakfast. Because I had done a breakfast of champions for my kids with the summer camp years ago. So I sort of had it in my wheelhouse, but I'm thinking it's a prayer breakfast, and I'm going to invite soldiers to tell their stories of overcoming, of hope and healing and empowerment and enlightenment. And so that started that year too, is that it wasn't enough. And so I just started knocking on doors again and inviting warriors that I knew. And so the prayer breakfast and the race sort of went hand in hand. And then and I didn't know 5 people would show up to the race or to the prayer breakfast. Well, 1,500 people showed up to the race, and to the prayer breakfast we were totally full. We had full capacity. Well, maybe not full, but what we knew as full. So there was easily 300 plus people there. Which was pretty amazing, since it was just word of mouth and nobody had heard of the speakers. And, people it's not really politically correct to say a prayer breakfast. Everybody wanted me to change the name. And I said, no, I'm not changing it. So I never have, and I'm not going to. But, so that happened. So then, there were members of the board that said, we need a golf tournament. And I said, I want nothing to do with the golf tournament. They are so labor intensive. They'll burn out every good person that's on our team. And they'll run, not walk away from it. But this one board member who's an avid golfer, and his son is his name is Scott Langlow. It was his idea, so I can blame him for it. And then his son, Alex Langlow, who's a firefighter with Gig Harbor, he worked with me at the Tides as a bartender. And I knew he saw the court really well, and I needed him on my logistics team, so he came on for the race. So that's how I just saw a little talent in somebody, and then I'll say, hey, oh, by the way, I need you for this event. Would you consider it? And so they all came on, and most of them are still with us. But Scott had this idea about doing a golf tournament. I said, you know what, Scott? Okay. And he did an amazing golf tournament, and it's continued to get better and better. We did take a break from it for a year because it is so labor intensive. And then Packy Reeder took it on these last 2 years. He loves golf. He's a veteran. You know, he has an absolute passion for it. And I think, you know, I guess we'll do it again this year. I mean, I know he wants to. I think he probably needs more people to come on and support him, because he's also running a business and got a family. And like, you know, if you're going to do this and you say yes to it, then you got to make sure the folks that do it, that are not getting paid to do it, have the kind of support and infrastructure. And that's the part that the foundation, we've grown with these events. And it's really just been myself and Kim, who is our administrative assistant, who just retired. So we're at this crossroads now. We have these 4 incredible events with a lot of volunteers, but we're at a crossroads where we have to make some big decisions about salary for some development people, some, you know, maybe we're at that place, well, I know we are, and it's a board discussion and we're having it, and but in 2019, in order to keep doing what we want to do and what our goals are and what our mission is, I can't tap dance alone anymore. And I don't mean to say that I'm the only one here, but we need to pay for some positions that can give us the kind of support.
Right.
So it doesn't fall on our board.
Help.
We need full-time help,
Yeah.
so that it doesn't fall on our board members, because they are selfless. They are wonderful, but there's only one of them, 2 of them that are retired. The rest of them all have, you know, jobs and families.
Yeah.
And so we're at that place. But you asked about what we're doing and where we're going, and you know, we've given away $300,000 plus in the last 8 years to area holistic and alternative programs, equine therapy, growing veterans, service dogs, mountain climbing expeditions, Heartbeat for Warriors. Oh gosh, I'm sort of blanking, but there's 10 or 15 different organizations that are very well intentioned, and we've been supporting them. Sometimes checks of $2,500, $5,000, $12,000, $15,000, and we've looked at that as a wonderful opportunity to really make a difference. But what we've learned, as I've learned about other programs around the country, and talking to a lot of people where the needs really are, is we've decided that we're going to create more of the programs of our own, or we're going to support programs that are really strength-based in nature. Not to say that the equine therapy isn't, or the service dogs, or any of those. They're all good. But we are seeing that there's great value in a workshop, post-traumatic growth workshop, that we've defined and we've researched and we've studied. And Suzanne Kirsch, who was my grief and loss counselor, mental health professional, is about to lead our first workshop at Heron's Key on October 13th. And I have to date 25 men and women signed up, some first responders as well, because what we know is that our police and our firefighters need this help as well. And we believe there's room at the table for them as well. Our focus, of course, is veterans, but there's room for everybody. So that's happening, and we're going to do more in 2019. And I've already talked to some outstanding warriors that are also seeing a great need for growth workshops that incorporate learning about how the brain works, learning about your family of origin. What happened to you when you were 5 and 6 and 12? How is that convoluting with your warrior?
Generational
You bet.
stuff too. Yeah.
Learning that you've got your military family or your first responder family who is as meaningful and valuable to you as your biological family. And how do you marry the two? Because there's value and worth in both, but the two they're different worlds, and you might operate a little bit differently. Anyway, there's a lot of psychology, and then incorporating good nutrition, incorporating ways to self-regulate as opposed to self-medicating. And that's something that I did. I definitely self-medicated. All of my family has, to try to cope with this incredible loss. So I can only imagine, what some of our other warriors, and we know that in that veteran community, there's a great propensity for addiction and alcoholism, drug addiction, all sorts of addictions, financial issues, emotional, social issues, screaming at the kids, screaming at your wife. There's just all these addictions. So workshops are needed. We can't send everybody to retreats. I just wrote a check for $50,000 2 days ago. We're going to send 6 responders, 2 first responders, 1 police, 1 fire battalion chief, and 4 warriors to the Boulder Crest retreat at the end of November. Our plan is to do 2 in 2019, continue the workshops, and then we've incorporated a monthly huddle at Heron's Key as well. They'd give us a stinking great deal. It's a beautiful facility. And we do monthly veteran huddles where, come as you are, any age, any theater of conflict, whether you're a Vietnam vet or 9/11 or somewhere in between, or before or after, and you come as you are, and we meet you there, and we just check your temperature, your barometer. What's going on in your world? Oh, I'm good. Really? Are you good? And then they start to peel away the onion a little bit. And these monthly huddles have been a great source of connection, because that's the one thing that we know. I've had 3-star generals tell me, one in particular who just retired a couple of years ago, 2 years ago, said the scariest drive that I did in my whole 25 years of service in the Army was that drive off of Joint Base Lewis McChord. Because it meant I was driving for the familiar and what I knew and what I honored and valued, and who respected me and loved me and gave me that kind of feedback, is walking off into the civilian world and not knowing what I was coming into. So, we've got a lot of work to do, and we're excited about the work that we're doing, because I think it's tangible, and I think you can hang your hat on some of the things that we've been doing, and it requires something in everybody, and that's part of what this whole thing was about, the Permission to Start Dreaming Foundation. Yes, we want to give our warriors permission to start dreaming and think of a life of service after service, and help them see forward that they matter to us still, and we need them. We need them in our communities. We need them in our churches. We need them in our families, in our marriages. We need them in our country, writing policy, running for office, being a part of the bigger picture, or just still serving in some capacity. But your service doesn't end with your military service, because there's something in their DNA that's different than the rest of ours. There's something in a man or woman that would sign up and strap their boots on, and they're protectors. So we need to help our freedom protectors, and it's up to us. And we need to incorporate the community to be a part of that solution, because it's not going to come from the institutions. They can do some things. The VA is making some improvements, but if you're going to hold your breath to the kind of work, that the internal, very personal work that needs to be done, and the response from us as community, as civilians, that is the part that we need to work. That's our responsibility. We make a covenant to them when they raise their right hand.
So what can we do on a daily basis? What can we do? I see, I think it's an even bigger issue. I work with hundreds of people throughout the month, and what I see is that a lot of adults are struggling with depression or anxiety. And then we're raising kids, and then we have spouses that might be in a stressful job or have served, or all of those things can happen. So what do we do? How can we help our kids?
Well, I think service, we talk about service, and obviously you got to help yourself before you can have others. But this is what I know. Before you know how to help yourself necessarily, you need to step out of your own way. And you need to do just anything for the person in front of you. And it might be that you're making a pie for the old lady across the street because she just lost her husband. I mean, it's that small. Mother Teresa said, you know, we're called to help others, but numbers don't matter.